Sure, it's not going to be so sunny. I know there's a lot of snow that's headed our way this week, but today was a brilliant sunny day. I'm just a little bit of catch-up information for us about the assignments so far, and then some information about contemporary realistic fiction, and the lesson plan or the essay that is due on March 10th. Also be listening for information about a week that I'll be away from my University of Maine office and my home office. I'll be away and I will be available for you. So first, I'd like to give praise to those of you who have been reading the chapters and making the timely posts, responding to the chapters on time in the discussion boards, and posting your thoughtful and well-researched comments. I'm enjoying the back and forth. I cannot respond to each and every one of you. I'd sure like to, but hopefully every now and then you'll see a post from me, especially if you have sparked my interest, and I'd like to make a comment about that. I loved the discussions on poetry, and many of you used your own experience, your own background knowledge about poetry. It was lively. You spiced up the discussions, and for those of you who are interested, go back and check out some of those discussions, because you'll find that some of the students in our class have posted research that they found about a lot of the genres. So make sure you take a look at that, because a lot of the stuff is like fantastic. I just want to add that some districts do make poetry a focus for their students. Poetry is part of the Common Core, and it can be fun. It's especially easy to use if you think about lessons at all levels. K through 12. There often is a point in a lesson where there might be a read aloud. That can happen at the upper grade levels. Some shared reading or some guided reading, and poetry is the place to use that, or the place to put that into the lessons, and therefore you can use poetry every single day. I want you also to think about some of these things that go on in the schools, like poetry aloud, poetry slam, poetry clubs. They're all highly effective. The discussion board also lit up a lot when you were sharing your information about graphic novels. It's such an interesting genre, and it just keeps gaining in popularity. It's so important to use graphic novels, especially with our struggling readers and writers. I know I've shared that with you before. I did notice that the discussion week that had to do with graphic novels drew fewer timely posts. So just a couple of words of caution: keep up with our lively discussions, and make sure that you post at least twice during the week, and at least twice to 2 of your peers. Late posts in most cases will not be accepted. So what can I say about the Common Core? You know what? It's not going to go away. We do need national standards. I just find it interesting that educators for at least the last 40 years that I know about have been asking for national common standards. And I just find it interesting that when they evolve and they come up, educators are saying, no, we don't want these, or it's too much. But you know what? I think, too, it's not the Common Core per se. I think it's all the assessments that educators are asked to give to our students. And I'm talking about separate from the Common Core: assessments in math, assessments in reading, assessments in content levels. And educators have found that they can be testing students and have not enough time for instruction, and I understand that. But realize that the Common Core State Standards are a one-shot in time, once a year, happening right about now. And they replace the main learning results. They're not going to be in addition to the main learning results. They replace them. I know that the Common Core State Standards in the state of Maine have been given the title or the name Maine Education, the MEAs, that's what it is. But they're different from the MEAs that were given. They replace them. They're not in addition to them. They are not in addition to the main learning results. They replace them. Common Core State Standards will also replace other standardized tests like the NUIAs. They replace the NUIAs. They replace other, like I said, other standardized tests. If your district gives metropolitans or scholastic, they should replace those too. And I know again that Maine has called the Common Core State Standards the MEAs, but they are the Common Core State Standards. So here's what I know about Common Core and text complexity in English language arts. What I know is that what was missing from the main learning results were the writing standards. So that with a Common Core, and what's so extremely necessary is to have good standards in these areas. We now have math, of course, but besides that, in ELA, we now have reading standards, writing standards, viewing, listening, and speaking or presenting standards. Are you aware that the main learning results did not have standards for writing? That they were absolutely necessary to have. They're critical and crucial, and they weren't there, and now they are. And actually, the writing standards of Common Core, or the MEAs for Maine, are excellent. We're going to be talking a whole lot more about these standards, especially as they relate to a shift in a lot of educators' understanding. And that comes with informational text and informational writing. And we'll be talking about that when we get to the week, and I think that's next week, about informational text. So Common Core and text complexity, again, some of you really nailed it. Some of you have great understanding about the necessity of standards and text complexity. We must challenge all students to be better readers and writers, and we can't do that if we give them texts and books that are too easy for them or that are too difficult or at their frustration level. So educators must understand, first of all, what reading levels their students are at and how to match appropriate texts to those students and those students' reading levels. So, continuing, I have not read your work yet on science fiction and fantasy. I'm looking forward to that and hoping that you found that genre as exciting and interesting as the others, thought-provoking, have had lively discussions. I'll make comments about that genre after I read what you have given me. Have you noticed how this genre has exploded recently, and has exploded due to popular demand and the popular demand of our society in general? Well, let's talk about another genre, the genre for this week, week 7, and that genre is realistic fiction. Now, talk about a popular genre. Realistic fiction is the most popular of all genres in K-12 students. You know, you add that realistic fiction with graphic novels, and you've got what our students want to read. Just ask any librarian. Let's see. So as you read the chapters in the books, look for information on what's available to our students today. Try to go outside your comfort level and see if you can find something that that's been written in the last 10 or 15 years that you might not have realized is out there. Take a look at some of the books that are written for our students that have to do with growing up, with sexuality, with fears, with families, lots about that, with death. I mean, that was a known topic about 15 years ago. You didn't see that in children's literature or adult literature at all. Lots of stuff on sports, but also you'll note that there are books now on crimes, on death, on violence, lots of stuff on diversity and disabilities, and on and on and on. So if you're on the K-8, if you're in the K-8 strand, get your hands on, if you can, if you have, the texts for the young adult literature, because actually the chapters in young adult literature texts are much more in-depth and much better chapters than the one in children's literature. Either are fine, but the young adult literature is better, much more comprehensive. I'd like to take some time here to talk about your major assignment that's coming up and that's due on March 10th. So please, if you've not begun to do it, do these three things. If you would, please, number one, read the description of the assignment or the assignments, because we're talking about the essay too, in the syllabus. Read the description of the assignments, please, on the tab on Blackboard. And then in all cases, please look at the rubric, because you'll find through the rubric that those are the criteria, and what I'm looking for is right there on the rubric. So on another note, again, no, this is something else. Along with the assignment, and if you do the lesson plan, I'm giving you a link to the backwards design lesson plan. Most of the methods classes at the University of Maine in Orono are asking the students to only use the backwards design lesson plan. I'm not going to make it mandatory for you. I'll make it optional, but I strongly recommend that you use the backwards lesson design, because if you look at the rubric, you will notice that all the criteria that's necessary that I'll be looking at in the lesson plan are done through the backwards design lesson plan. And let's see. If you have any questions about anything, please email me. I'm looking forward again, I should say. I will be not in my offices during the week of March 16th through the 23rd, but I will be available to you. It may be sporadic, though. So to end, as a literacy specialist for many years in the public school, I've always liked March for another reason, besides there being higher and stronger sun, is that I'm not sure if you're aware, but March 2nd was the birthday of Theodore Geisel, or Dr. Seuss, as we know him. And that was always a fun time for me as an educator in public schools. March 2nd is usually and often designated as Read Across America Day, and sometimes the whole month of March is used for events or activities that have to do with reading across America. So in honor of Dr. Seuss, I'm going to just say to you,